What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another really exciting video. I'm sitting here on a bar stool in my living room, here to talk about my 2020 lineup of fishing rods. Now, as a lot of you guys know, based on my previous videos of like going through techniques or baits or whatever, sitting in my house, definitely not my favorite thing to be doing, but the temperature right now is like 16, 17 degrees, feels like 8 or 9. And based on my guide trip yesterday, there's just no way that I want to be on the water right now unless I have to. It's brutally cold. GoPros don't work when it's that cold. Nothing really works when it's that cold. Fishing line, fishing reels, stuff like that. But I have been getting a lot of comments about the rods that I'm using, the reels that I'm using, the line that I'm using, so on and so forth. So I figured now that I have my full lineup of rods for this year and reels, that I would kind of go over everything that I use at any given time, whether it be bass fishing, whether it be wiper fishing, walleye fishing, whatever. I've got all my rods in for the year as well as my reels, so that's what we're gonna go over today. But first and foremost, I just wanted to thank everybody who came out to the Olathe Bass Pro Shops last Saturday to see me for the Guides and Outfitters event. I had an absolute blast. This is the biggest one that they've done in like 5 years. I've done this event for the last 2 or 3 years, and I've really honestly been like one of 2 or 3 other guides at that event. But this time we had 7, 8, 9, something like that. Some guys that I've met before, some guys that I haven't, some guys that I don't particularly care for, some guys that don't particularly care for me. But the whole point is that you guys came out, you said hello, you booked a trip, you came by to tell me that you like the videos or that you want me to keep making the videos, and I could not be more jacked on that. So thank you guys so much for coming out. It meant a lot. It was nice to put some faces to the names, guys that comment on my videos, guys that watch my videos, but it couldn't have been a bigger success, and we booked a lot of trips for this year and I met a lot of awesome people. So first and foremost, I just wanted to thank you guys for that. So I guess without further ado, without me talking anymore about nothing, let's talk about the 9, 10, 11, 12, I don't know how many rods there are back there, rods and reels that I'm going to be using for this new 2020 season. As a lot of you guys know, 2 of my biggest pro staff supporters are Fox River Lures and Rods. I've been with them for 5 or 6 years now, as well as Piscifun Reels. I've been with them for the last 1.5 to 2 years now. Chuck DeVito with Fox River has always done such an amazing job of taking care of me, and such an amazing job at every year or every other year upgrading the rods and reels, cycling through different models, try and see what guys like. Now they've got an ice rod lineup out, which was long overdue for a lot of those guys up north. And now for the first time, Chuck has switched things up. We've got 2 different models available as far as the bait casting and the spinning. EVA foam grips with a different blank, as well as the cork with a totally different blank also. New tips, new rod grips. It's just freaking awesome, and that's what I'm gonna go over today. So right now behind me, I kind of had to eliminate a few, but I've got 6 casting rods and 2 spinning rods. And that's kind of like if I was gonna fish a tournament, which I'll actually be taking a break from this next year. I will not be fishing with East Kansas Bassmasters this next year to focus on the business. But in tournament situations, I'm probably gonna have around 6 to 8 rods, just depending on where we're going and what we're doing. So let's start off with number 1. First one that we're gonna talk about today is one of the spinning rod models that I'm a huge fan of. We've talked about this rod before in a previous video, and I've talked about it a couple other times when it comes to wiper fishing and stuff. But this is the Fox River 7'3" medium light spinning rod. So as far as the rod goes, a 7'3" medium light is probably gonna be my go-to finesse rod. So for example, right now, I've got a Ned rig tied on there. It's a great Ned rig rod. It's a great shaky head rod. Any drop shot type situation, which I don't do a lot of. Maybe some lighter tubes and stuff, but this is gonna be your go-to rod for any sort of dragging bait. So kind of what I was talking about before, this is the first year that Fox River has offered an EVA grip for this rod. Before, Fox River had nothing but cork, which I'm obviously a huge fan of cork, but the main difference is with these EVA models is that you get this cool gunmetal style looking blank. Now, if anybody knows me, they know that I really like aesthetics when it comes to fishing rods. Obviously, I like fishing rods for what they are and what they do, but I also like a rod that just looks really good. With all but one of these rod models behind me, these are all the EVA foam grip, but on the EVA foam grip models, you've got a sleek, sexy looking gunmetal, dark gray color, as opposed to on the cork models, you've got just the straight black blank, which also looks good. But to be able to switch it up this year, what Chuck did with the design on these rods is just so freaking awesome. So with this 7'3" medium light spinning rod, I've got this paired with a 2000 size Piscifun Carbon X spinning reel. Now I've talked about this reel quite a bit in the past. I've done a video on it before when it very first came out, but it's the lightest spinning reel that Piscifun offers. I love the 2000 size. I've got a 3000 size or two as well, but the 2000 size seems to be a good middle of the road size for whatever spinning application you want. You can upgrade to the 3000 size if you want to. The 3000 size offers a bigger spool so you can fit more line on it, but for what I do, I pretty much just use the 2000 size and I have a couple 3000s if I need to make longer casts or if I need more line for whatever. But for how light this rod and reel combo is and the balance of the rod is just incredible. Now when I talk about the balance of a rod, I'm talking about when you put your two fingers just right at the end of the grips here, if that rod levels out on both sides, then you've got a perfectly balanced combo. But sometimes you'll find that some rods are kind of tip heavy, so you'll notice that maybe they kind of dip down just a little bit on the front. But with this reel being barely 7 ounces, this combo is just money for your finesse setup. So that's the first combo that I've got as far as what we've got for the spinning rods between Fox River and Piscifun. All right, now for the second spinning rod model, yes, I use 2 different styles of spinning rods pretty much at all times, just depending on what I'm doing. The second spinning rod that I use is a 7-foot medium action spinning rod. This is pretty much your utility rod. When I have clients on the boat and they want to get a Fox River rod, I always pretty much recommend the 7-foot medium. You can do so much with a 7-foot medium spinning rod, it's not even funny. But for me, right now, for example, I use this rod a lot for jerk baits in the cold water. It's a great jerk bait rod. Obviously, it's a 7-foot medium as opposed to the medium light, so it's a little bit stiffer and it's got a little bit more backbone than the medium light. So when we talk about finesse, you can drag a heavier tube, this is my favorite tube rod for smallmouth bass. You can drag a heavier shaky head. You can drag a heavier Ned rig around. This is my favorite rod for small swim baits for smallmouth bass and wipers and white bass. But it's the same fast tip, just the medium action, so it's got a little bit more backbone so you can really drive that hook home. But again, it's got that same EVA foam grip with that gunmetal or stainless steel kind of dark gray looking blank. Just looks super, super good. So then with that on this rod, I've actually got this rod paired with the Piscifun Honor XT in the 2000 size again. So the Honor XT is just a little bit heavier than the Carbon X. This reel I think is in the $40 or $50 range as opposed to the Carbon X, which is in that $75 to $80 range. But it's the same thing. It's still pretty light. It's got a really smooth drag. It really looks good on these rods. So I really like that 2000 size Honor XT just to kind of switch it up in my arsenal. Fox River obviously also offers the 6'6" medium light spinning rod, which as you guys have seen before, I use for all my crappie stuff. But for this little section here, we're just going over kind of if I had a tournament arsenal. These are my 2 spinning rods that I've got in my tournament arsenal. So now that we've got these out of the way, let's get on to the casting rods. So we'll get this one out of the way first. This is an older model of the Fox River casting rod that they no longer offer. There is a new one in the works, but this is not one that they currently offer. This is the 7-foot medium action casting rod from Fox River, but it's the E-glass model. So this is a rod specifically made for crankbait fishing. As you can see, it's a little bit thicker here, but it's made of a mix of a composite, graphite, and fiberglass. So it's perfect for crankbait fishing. That's exactly what you want. You want a limber rod for crankbaits, especially deep crank. So that rod, like what we talked about in a previous video, it has a lot of parabolic action. So it does have a lot of bend in that rod. It bends all the way down here. Any kind of sort of treble hook fishing that you do, you want a very parabolic rod, but it's got so much flex to it. So when you're dragging a deep crank on the bottom and a fish hits it, that rod just loads right up. You barely have to set the hook, just let it load and let those trebles get into the fish's mouth, as opposed to a stiffer rod where it's just gonna pull those trebles right out of the fish's mouth. But usually every year I sell my old models and then I buy all the new models from Fox River, but this is one that I had to hold back because I saw that they were not offering a casting crankbait rod for this year, but there is one in the works from what I hear. But it's your perfect crankbait rod. That's the only thing I throw on this rod is crankbaits, and it's just awesome. I've caught so many big fish on this rod. I caught my almost 6.5 pounder last week on on this rod. It's just an awesome, awesome crankbait rod. So on this rod, I've got this paired with the Piscifun Phantom X casting reel. This is a reel that they came out with last year to kind of cover all the bases as far as gear ratios. With the Phantom X, you've got a 5:1 ratio, a 6:3 ratio, and a 7:6 ratio. So on my crankbait rod, on this deep crank rod, I've got the 6:3 model. I'm not really a huge fan of the 5:1 models just because I don't have as much control over my speed. I know with deep crankbaits, you're supposed to have a 5:1 to really get that bait down there and then be able to slow down. But I also throw a lot of square bills on this rod too. So I like that 6:3 model, and it helps me control my speed a lot more. I can slow it down, I can speed it up. It doesn't wear me out as much. Whereas with like a 5:1, you know, it takes you 5 minutes just to reel your bait in. And on that, with my crankbait rod, I've got 12-pound fluorocarbon spooled up on there, pretty much the go-to for any crankbaits. You know, you might go down to 10 or 14, just depending on the cover, but that's my crankbait rod. So, kind of following along with the moving baits, I'll show you guys this next Fox River rod that we've got here. This is one of the new model casting rods, just like the spinning rods, where it's got the EVA foam grips and that awesome looking blank. But the one thing about these Fox River rods is that in the casting models, this is there are no longer any cork handles for the casting rods. So they're all the EVA foam grips. Fox River offers about 4 or 5 different models of casting rods. This one right here is my favorite all around. This is the 7'3" medium heavy. So Fox River does not have a medium action casting rod available, but like I said, as far as the crankbait stuff, I think they have a new one that's in the works right now. But the 7'3" medium heavy combo is going to be your best bet for any sort of moving baits, chatterbaits, lipless crankbaits, spinnerbaits, so on and so forth. You've got a 7'3" length, so you can really get those casts out there. So on this one right here, I've got it rigged up with a lipless. This is also going to be my alternate rod for a chatterbait or for a spinnerbait, but I was throwing a lipless around the other day, and this is what I've got it rigged up on. So as far as the reel is concerned, you'll notice that this one is a little bit different, and it's not a Piscifun reel. But if you guys follow my Facebook page or my Instagram page or see my website, I'm also sponsored by Bass Pro Shops. So I do try and mix in some rods and reels every now and again just to be able to promote both. That's the benefit of being sponsored by both companies. You can promote both reels and still be able to use them all without any brand exclusivity. So on this one, I've got this paired with a 6:8 Tucker. So on this combo here, I've got this paired up with a 6:8 gear ratio Bass Pro Shops Johnny Morris Signature Series titanium reel. Now, I won't go into too many details about this reel. You guys can go look it up and I'll link it down below. It is hands down the highest end casting reel that they offer. It's super, super light. It's super, super sleek. They've got 3 different gear ratios with this reel, and it was just not one that I could get rid of. It just looks so good on this rod because, again, I'm big on aesthetics when it comes to rods and reels, and this one just looks damn good. So on this combo here, I've got this paired up with 14-pound fluorocarbon. That's a pretty much utility line, 14 or 15-pound fluorocarbon for your liplesses, spinnerbaits, chatterbaits, big swim baits and soft swim baits like I throw for wipers and stuff like I talked about in my last wiper video. So that's what we've got on this one. Let's move on to the next one. All right, so next up, we've got the exact same rod, the 7'3" medium heavy casting rod from Fox River. This one's paired up with the same Johnny Morris Signature Series titanium reel, except this one is an 8:3:1 model. So right here, this one I've got a Senko rigged up on a Texas rig. This is kind of my utility rod as far as like maybe finesse jigs, lighter Texas rigs, any kind of dragon bait, maybe a lighter football jigs, anything that I'm dragging, I still want that 7'3" length with the medium heavy action. It just works out really good. So on this one, I've got this on 17-pound fluorocarbon. I don't really mess around when it comes to line. I don't want to be breaking off or have any fray, so I always go 17 to 20 on my dragon baits. But again, when I recommend this rod to clients, this is my utility rod, that 7'3" medium heavy. You can do just about everything on it, but for this one in particular with that 8:3:1 gear ratio on that Bass Pro Shops reel, picks up a lot of line really quick. Definitely one of my favorite rods and reels right here. So here we have the exact same Fox River rod, 7'3" medium heavy. You guys will notice that there's a trend here. I really like that 7'3" medium heavy. You can do everything with that rod. So for this one, I've got this one paired up with a jig. This is a 1/2 ounce Motion Fishing Company jig. But on this one, I do have a Piscifun Phantom X reel on this one in 6'3:1. Now I'm thinking about switching this one out. I like like having a backup 6-3-1 just for stuff like this. I can control my speed a lot better. But for anything dragging related, I really do like to be able to pick that line up really quick. So this one will probably be switched out with a 7-1-1 or an 8-3-1 reel. But for right now, this is from last year and I've got this on the 7'3" medium heavy to drag jigs with. And on this one again, I've got the 17-pound fluorocarbon, but I think I'll probably be switching this one out for a higher gear ratio Piscifun. All right, now we're getting into the last two more beefy models. So this is again a Fox River casting rod. This is a 7'3" heavy casting rod. This one I actually just got this reel in today and freshly spooled up with line. Not sure what I'm gonna put on it yet, but for a 7'3" heavy action, there's a lot of different things that you can do with that. You can drag big jigs, big Texas rigs. You can frog with this if you had braid on your reel. It's just got a lot more backbone to it with that heavy action. The rod is rated up to 1.5 ounces, so theoretically you could throw big swim baits on this. You could throw an A-rig on it. I like a longer rod for an A-rig. We'll talk about that here in a second. But for an awesome utility rod, if you like throwing heavier baits, the 7'3" heavy is where it's at. So on this rod, I actually just got this reel in today. This is the Piscifun Phantom casting reel. This reel has actually been out for a while. It's kind of their flagship, most expensive model. But the difference between the Phantom X and the Phantom is that this model is only offered in a 7:1 gear ratio. But this is the lightest reel that they currently offer, so I don't mind making that compromise. I can pick up line quick with a 7:1. I'm probably gonna tie a big jig or a big Texas rig on this one. It's not gonna be my frogging rod. I like a longer rod for a frogging rod. We'll talk about that 7.6 model here in a second. But this combo right here is by far the lightest casting reel combo that I have in my arsenal, and I'm so jacked to throw it. But again, you can see all these Fox River casting models are all the same with that EVA foam grip and that gray blank. With this Phantom with that green and black on it, it just looks so good. 5 down, 1 to go. We'll get on to the last one here. All right, last one. You guys can see my A-rig on here, so I think you know what this one's gonna be. But this model of rod, Fox River rod right here, is the 7'6" medium heavy action. Now, when I was talking about my other rods that I have from last year, I also have a 7'6" heavy action. That one I like for obviously really heavy baits. That one's rated to almost up to 2 ounces. This one's rated up to 1 ounce. But when I'm throwing an A-rig or something like this, I like just a little bit more flex in the rod, because with a heavier bait, you're obviously whipping that really quick. But that being said, a 7'6" medium heavy, depending on the rod company, you can throw a frog on this rod. You can flip with this rod. This is gonna be one of my go-to flipping rods, just like that 7'6" heavy. This one inevitably probably will become my flipping rod for Texas rigs and bigger jigs, and then that 7'6" heavy will probably be my frogging rod. But for this one right here, I had this A-rig rigged up on my 7'6" heavy, but I really wanted to just be able to throw this rod and test it out because I have not had a 7'6" medium heavy from Fox River before. So I'm really jacked to be throwing this. I've got this rigged up on that same Bass Pro Shops Johnny Morris Signature Series reel. This happens to be an 8-3-1, which with an A-rig, you really have to control your speed. You don't want to be picking up line that quick. So I really have to control how slow I roll that bait when I'm throwing this. The reasoning for that is because this is the one reel that I have right now on an 8-3, which is rigged up with 65-pound braid, because this is my Froggen Reel. And obviously when you're throwing a frog, you want to be able to pick up line quick and set the hook when they suck it under. So that's the reason I've got an 8-3-1 when I'm throwing my A-rig, as opposed to something a little bit slower where I can control my speed. But when you're hooking an A-rig around all day, you definitely want a light combo, and this Fox River rod and Bass Pro Shops Johnny Morris Signature Series reel, which they do still offer, is one of the lightest that I've ever owned. But that right there concludes my 2020 rod arsenal with Fox River rods, Piscifun reels, and also some Bass Pro One mix in there. Whew! I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of listening to myself talk, and I'm tired of talking. But like I said before, I've gotten a lot of questions on doing a video about my rod and reel arsenal. Honestly, on YouTube, I would probably personally never watch somebody's video on their New Year rod and reel arsenal. It's really not that interesting to me, but I think it's kind of interesting to some of you guys. But it's cold as balls outside, and I have nothing else to do, and I can't be on the water, so that's why you're getting this one. So if you guys have stuck around this long, thank you so much. I really appreciate the views, but I feel that this was something that I probably had to get out of the way at some point and just show people what I'm using instead of doing it from fishing video to fishing video. I'll just get it all out of the way right now. So with that said, again, thank you to everybody that came out to Bass Pro Shops this past weekend to come say hi. I really appreciate being able to meet all you guys and hear the kind words. That really means a lot to me. No, I don't want to talk about the Packer game, but I am excited. As you guys can see, I've got a new sign back there from this guy in Missouri that makes those. Pretty awesome. I am excited for the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. I am super excited about that. The Packers played a shitty game. We knew that was probably coming, but it is what it is. So anyway, with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna get all these rods put away. Tomorrow's supposed to be over 32 degrees, over the freezing point, so I'm gonna try and get out on the lake. I'm actually installing a new little something electronics-wise later, so I'll be excited to show you guys that tomorrow. But we will be back on my home waters crappie fishing, so in the meantime, I will see you guys then. Thanks again for watching. Catch you in the next video.